This is the year, the church moment where we celebrate this Sunday every single year, the baptism of Jesus. Every year. On the Sunday after Epiphany, we read this story. And for preachers around the world, I'm fairly sure that's a problem, because every year we read the same story at the same time. What do you say about this thing that we read and hear so often? I used to say to Yvonne when she started training, there's 10 sermons in every passage. I think I was talking rubbish. I don't believe that. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. And that's the thing that you have to do, isn't it? You have to challenge the assumption that there's nothing new to say, nothing new to learn. People have written books about this. More than one of them. It's only 4 verses, but people have written books. So there's definitely something to say, even though this is, I think, the 8th time that I've had to preach on this passage in this week, but we also get it in Advent as well. So who knows how often I've had to preach on this. There are things to challenge and explore. Always. And, one of the assumptions is that you've all been here all of those times. You probably haven't. The other assumption is that you were paying attention even if you were here. You may or may not have been. We've entered into the season of Epiphany, and we're supposed to be interested in making discoveries about who Jesus is. That's what the season of Epiphany is all about. It's about who is Jesus. And Epiphany just means a sudden recognition or realization. It's like a light bulb moment. Aha, oh, all right, okay, I hadn't considered that before. I hadn't understood that before. The wise men had an epiphany. Their epiphany was that they found a king in a place that they didn't really expect to find a king. The king that they found wasn't in a palace. He wasn't surrounded by power and wealth. He was in a house in Bethlehem. Just a little town with ordinary people. And that had helped him to realize something important about who Jesus was. So let's see what we can discover together, what realizations we might make about what these 4 verses tell us about Jesus. John the Baptist has been dunking people in the Jordan and shouting at them for a while now. He's a full-on prophet. He's a holy man who stands on the very margins of society and reminds people of who they're supposed to be. And his positioning at the River Jordan is not an accident. It's the site where the people of Israel crossed into the Promised Land. It was the moment they entered into a new life. It's just to the east of Jerusalem. It's just to the north of the Dead Sea. But it's 100 miles from Galilee. And the passage tells us that that's where Jesus has come from. He's walked 100 miles to come and see his cousin, John the Baptist. That's a long way. That's days of walking, isn't it? There's no bus. There's no trains. Might have had a donkey. There's something really important about this, because that's a huge amount of effort to go to get there. John's response to Jesus, I think, tells us everything that we need to know. What? You want me to baptize you? Really? No, it should be the other way around. You should be the one that's baptizing me. Because John, remember, knows who Jesus is. It's his cousin. His mother is Elizabeth. Well, Mary's cousin, so they're second cousins, once removed. They know each other. Mary went to visit Elizabeth, remember, when she was pregnant? And Elizabeth's baby leapt in her womb. John has known forever who Jesus is. John has been preparing for this moment for 30 years. And yet it still seems to be a huge surprise that Jesus comes to John and asks for baptism. His question is a great question. Why do you need me to baptize you? It's a question that's perplexed scholars for years. What's going on here? There are several answers to the question. The first one is that the gospel writers need to show that Jesus is greater than John. Now, that seems like a really odd thing to have to say, but it's true. John is hugely popular. People flock to see him. People like what John's doing. They like this big, bold character who's baptizing people and shouting at officials and telling them how it should be. He's hugely charismatic. He's this wild man out in the desert who doesn't care. He says it like it is. He tells people the things that everybody's wanted to say to them for ages, straight to their face, with no fear. And they're intrigued. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? What's he talking about? He keeps saying that we've got to prepare the way. What? The way for what? What does that mean? What does that look like? And he keeps saying that I'm not the real deal. I'm just a warm-up act. There's someone greater who's coming. And you can imagine that they must have been like, wow, greater. There's more. Well, this is going to be amazing. Because this is already good. We're going to have to stick around because this is going to be a show. And just like the prophets before him, John had his own disciples. There were people who wanted to follow him and learn from him. They wanted to really dig into what he was talking about and be like him. They were drawn to his message. Their lives were changed by it, and they wanted more. We think now that John was probably a member of a religious community called the Essenes, and they gathered at a place called Qumran. You can still visit it today. It's an amazing place to go. It's not far from where we find John at the Jordan. The Qumran's a really famous place now because it's where they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. So in 1947, a wee guy was wandering around with sheep and found a pot in a cave. And it turned out the pot in the cave had some of the Bible in it from the 1st century. And over the next 10 or 12 years, they found hundreds of scrolls. Every single book of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, apart from the book of Esther, was there. But also lots of contemporary writings, historical documents, commentary on what had been going on in the world. It's a hugely important find. And it dates from around the time that John was there. Perhaps more interestingly, I don't know if you can get more interesting than that, the Essene community had excavated baths. Now that sounds like a kind of really odd thing for us to hear, but they bathed every day, whether they needed it or not, in the desert. It takes a huge amount of effort to dig in the rock and then to get water that would fill up a bath that's big enough, and they're big, big pools that people would go all the way into and come out the other side. People who wanted to criticise them would say that was hugely indulgent. Water was incredibly precious. Down round the Dead Sea, there isn't much fresh water. So to do that drew criticism, but they thought it was important. This idea of going into the water and washing away all the stuff and coming out the other side was a really symbolic and important action for them, and they did it every day. John is doing exactly the same thing, almost on an industrial scale. He goes to a source of water, the Jordan, and people can go in the water and come back out of the water transformed. People are given a clean slate, a new start, washing away all that has been and a chance to change. And that all makes sense, doesn't it? We all need that. Which one of us wouldn't like the idea of taking all the stuff that we're not proud of, all the things that we've done wrong, all the things that we should have done but we haven't, all the times when we were less than kind, all the times when we made bad choices, that we could bundle that all up and just wash it away. What an amazing gift that would be. Who wouldn't want the opportunity to start over again? And that's exactly what baptism is. Here's the problem, I think, with baptism. You only do it once. And you're only allowed to do it once. It's a thing. We have communion regularly. We can take that as often as we want, but we are only baptized once. You can't do it again. And in our tradition, that often means we were baptized as infants, as babies. And sometimes I wonder if that's problematic. It's one of those things that I go back and forward on all the time. I was baptized when I was 6 months old in Lark Hall. See? So I'm allowed to slag Lark Hall off. Trinity Church in Lark Hall, which is shut now. Wasn't my fault. I was baptized there when I was 6 months old because my mum and dad went to that church, and I have absolutely no memory of that. There's a lovely picture in which I look positively angelic in one of those slippy communion robes. That's it. That's the only evidence that ever happened. I have no memory of that. And I'm sure it was a hugely significant thing for my parents, and maybe even for the church community as well. And in some way it's led to me being here today, but I don't remember. I don't remember it because I was a baby. I love the theological stuff around that. I like that when we baptize babies particularly, we name them, we welcome them into the church community, the whole of the church, not just this one. And we remind all of us that we are children of God. But that seems more appropriate when it's like an actual child. And we put water on their head, which just seems really odd, because how do you wash away the sins of a 3-month-old baby who's not done anything yet? The Jews believe that you can't sin until you're 12. So until your bar mitzvah or your bat mitzvah, if you're a girl, you're not capable because you don't have capacity. So we baptize babies to welcome them into something. It still sends shivers down my spine when I stand here and I say what we're going to do. That we're going to make statements that acknowledge Christ as Lord, which is such a countercultural thing to do. That we're creating an alternative culture for our children to live into. For us to live in and be part of. But infant baptism isn't the washing away of sin. It's not starting over for a baby. It's a statement about community. It's a statement about belonging. It's a statement about their place in us, in this body of the church. And always encourage the congregation to repeat the vow that you make, because you always go, we will, with a less than enthusiastic, oh yeah, of course we will. Because the statement that we make is really, really important. Will we do that? Will we create this community that children can grow up in and be part of and experience and feel God's love? It matters when we say, yeah, we will. It's a big deal. Others are baptized as adults or older children, where they've made their own decision to come and ask for baptism. And that decision is made with some understanding of what it is and why they want to be baptized. And a knowledge, I think, that that moment is quite literally a watershed. There will be a before and an after. And I think that's really important, a before and an after. And I wonder if we get caught up just a little bit too much in the during and the act itself. I wonder if we put just a little bit too much emphasis on the moment of baptism. And I only say that because I wonder if we forget to live into the consequences of that moment. All the possibilities that moment opens us up to. And we forget about confirmation. There's a moment in our tradition, which is usually a tiny, tiny little moment, where when someone joins the church, we ask them if they confirm their baptism as part of a number of questions, and they say, I do. In other traditions, that confirmation is a much bigger deal. It's a proper thing. It's, First Holy Communion in the Catholic Church. That's what confirmation looks like. For us, it's a smaller thing, but it's a really, really important moment. Because as grown-ups, we confirm usually our infant baptism. I've had a chance to think about this now. I've had a chance to realise what that means to me, and I want to say myself that yes, I do believe these things. But we can't baptise you again. So we shake your hand. That's great, well done. For me, confirmation is hugely important. It matters, even though there's no water involved. It's another one of those watershed moments. Someone once said that baptism is an outward testimony of an inward transformation. I really like that, an outward testimony of an inward transformation. It's saying out loud what I believe is important. And I think Jesus' baptism is one of those moments. And it does seem hugely significant. All the gospel writers talk about it. It's one of the few things that they all talk about, that they all say is important. In this moment, Jesus submits to John's ministry. He allows John to serve him. He enables John to usher in the moment that John has been prophesying about. By allowing John to baptize Jesus, Jesus is testifying that this is the moment when everything changes. This is the time when the transformation happens. This is when Jesus steps into his identity. Jesus emerges from the water, and suddenly the heavens are opened, and he saw God's Spirit descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from the heavens said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." Something changes for Jesus in that moment. In Matthew's version of the story, it seems to be a personal revelation, a realization that this is it. It's an epiphany for Jesus. It's not that he doesn't know who he is, or that he has always known who he is, but when he sees a vision of the heavens open up and the Spirit come down like a dove, Jesus knows in that moment that God is with him, that God is pleased with him, that God loves him, that he is indeed God's beloved Son. I don't think for a minute that that's new information for Jesus. But I also know that we all have moments in our lives when something that we've we've known suddenly takes on new significance. And for Jesus, that's enough for now. That's enough for Jesus to begin his ministry. It's enough to start something new. This is a moment of confirmation. There will be other ones. This is a point where Jesus is assured of his identity, and there'll be more of those too. This is a threshold to be stepped over, and it's not the last one. And so it is for us. Baptism is a catalyst to action. It's a confirmation of who we've always been. It's a realization for us of who we are. And we, each of us individually and together, are challenged to live into that possibility and to decide 100 times a day to make that real. So baptism, however and whenever it happens, is always just a beginning. It's always just a start. It's always a decision to be different. And that in itself is amazing. What a gift. To leave behind all that has been and step into a new future. But what happens next is just as important. How we demonstrate that inward transformation with deeds and actions every single day is the real testimony. The testimony that we all need to see. And as we try, and sometimes stumble, that same epiphany Jesus should have had should lift us up. That God says to each and every one of us, you are my child. You are beloved. With you, I'm pleased. So do we step into that possibility, knowing that we're loved and cherished by God? It's a challenge for all of us. A threshold to step over and a world to step into.